Welcome back to Booktalks Podcast. This is Kayla,
And Marissa.
and this week we read Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkin Reid, which she's definitely a repeat author for us. We've done Daisy Jones and the Six, and we've done Malibu Rising, so now we're doing her newest book, Carrie Soto is Back. Um,
And we
well,
have mixed feelings about it.
and we love Taylor Jenkins Reid. We both felt very passionately about Daisy Jones and the Six. I think me and Marissa actually got in like a fight and like didn't talk for a couple of days after that podcast.
We're so passionate about it.
I think it's one of our best episodes though, because we were arguing the whole time, but I feel like we had such diverse opinions on it.
Mhm.
Um, and you actually didn't finish reading Malibu Rising when we recorded Malibu Rising, and I didn't know that because your text didn't go through. So I remember just going off, and you had no idea.
And I was just like, yeah, that was crazy. Like, gave no details, just agreed.
I do think she's a very unique writer, and I feel like she writes each book very differently, and she
Mhm.
hops around in time a lot. Um, or I guess what Malibu Rising is like by hour. She just does her writing very uniquely, and I think it was good writing per se. I just don't really like the story she told with this book.
Yeah, I will say of the books I've read by her, because you've read an additional one. So I don't know how the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo is, but of the books I've read by her, I actually think this book ended up having the most plot because I was kind of describing her books to my mom and I was like, she kind of writes a ton of character development and like sucks you in through character development. But like, what was the plot of Daisy Jones and the Six? All I remember is the guy was cheating and I was rooting for him. And then like Malibu Rising again, I'm like, there was kind of the house fire and that was like the big climax, but the story's really about the siblings and their relationship. So with this one, up until the first 30 or 40%, I thought it was going the same direction where it was just like no plot, just here's the character. And then we finally got a plot, which is her comeback to tennis. So I will give it that. Like it definitely had a plot and it definitely had like a really big moment at the end. But all in all, it was just like someone I couldn't really root for.
She's a very difficult character to love, and I feel like that's the point of it.
Mhm.
I was telling Marissa earlier, Carrie Soto was introduced in Malibu Rising in like the first chapter when Nina's like, yeah, like she's sleeping with my husband right now. Like so
Right now.
she sets up this character to like not like her.
Mhm.
Um I do say like in the final game, I was like kind of rooting for her because more for her dad.
Yeah.
Um I really liked her father, and I was like, I really wanted her to win the like last US Open and like beat these records for her dad. Um, but she's a hard character to like.
She's a very hard character to like and I feel like it was so self-imposed. And the two big things that I point out is the fact that she freaking fired her dad as her coach. Like, what? And then she never tried to make friends.
Oh
And
yeah.
like, I get it. Like, I'm a loner too, but she was like openly rude to everyone and openly refusing to be friends with anyone. And I'm like, if you've been in the sport long enough, you would think she'd, have made friends along the way. And she just didn't.
It reminds me of when we first started work and Marissa didn't want to be my friend. But she wasn't openly rude to me. She just ignored me.
Just refused to talk to you.
It's actually funny. Some of my closest relationships in my life are people that like I just sat next to and started talking to and like didn't give them an option to like not speak to me.
Mm, yeah, you're good at that.
But it doesn't like yeah, you said like she could have been a loner and like not tried to be friends with people, but she actively like was just mean. Um, I do feel like some of the points in this book were about like sexism, especially in like women's sports. Because I do feel like she gets shed such a bad light for not being friendly when like ha if a man did do that, it probably wouldn't be portrayed retrieved the same way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, if I was like a competitor and I was versing her, I'd be scared because she just looks mean.
One of my favorite Carrie Soto moments was in the before, so before her comeback, and she'd won one of her matches or something. It was a post interview, and she was smiling, and the interviewer was like, "Oh, you're smiling. It's so nice to see you smile." And then Carrie immediately dropped her smile. I was just like, "No." I was like, "Okay, I kind of like her for doing that."
She was like unapologetically herself.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to respect her for that. But yeah, she did seem like kind of a coward. Like she kind of was scared to lose, which I mean, I get it. Who likes losing? Um, but and she was scared to like express her feelings at all about anything, like even to her parent, like her dad. It took her dad. It took like years for her to actually like communicate with her father.
Well, and more so than that, her dad was scared to be honest with her just because of her personality, her angry, like her inability to lose. Like you said, no one wants to lose, no one likes to lose. It's never fun. But the people I look up to in sports are people who can lose with grace, who can move on with their lives and like be happy still. Carrie Soto was not like that. And so her dad was never able to be honest with her because if he said something negative or if he were to give her critiques, she would lose it. She'd fire him for Christ's sake.
That broke my heart when he comes into the room and she hears him on the phone and he has like tears in her eye. He has tears in his eyes. I felt so bad. And also he had a point when he's like, stop jumping so high. And she's like, don't tell me what to do. Literally, he could have prolonged her career.
Yeah, which is exactly okay, spoiler warning. Don't listen if you haven't read the end, but it's exactly what happens at the end when she's coaching Chan and she's like, we need to preserve your ankle, so you're gonna stop doing stupid things to break your ankle. And Chan's like, no, I don't want to, but then she listens to her. It's like her coaching ended up being just like her dad, like her dad was right the whole time.
Yeah, I did like the father-daughter relationship of it. They were both very flawed humans. And I feel like we don't really read like in all the books we read, I feel like the last one especially like it wasn't real. Like, well, that one was a really bad example because that one had like merman in it. But
It wasn't real. Excuse me, it wasn't.
I feel like even the emotions in that book didn't really feel real. And I do feel like Taylor Jenkin Reid writes really well of like really flawed humans and
Mm-hmm.
their emotions. So I do feel like she writes beautifully, and I feel like she writes about imperfect people and in a very like mainstream. Like so many people read her books, where I wouldn't think this would be a book everyone would read because it's like a harder read.
Yeah, no, it is. And I am surprised she's so popular because her books are, they have a message to them and a lesson to learn in each one. And they're almost reminiscent of something you would read in high school to study, tear apart. How did she convey this? How did she do that? And yet they're captivating. Like, even as I was texting you how much I hated Carrie Soto, I read this book straight through. Well, I listened to it, but I could not stop listening to it. It was just, it like pulls you in, it captivates you. And like, even though you hate the character and sort of, I mean, I like you, I learned to like her by the end, but she's a challenging person. So Taylor is an amazing writer. And I like, this is not the last book I'll read by her.
No, I think she has us hooked at this point. I still think my favorite book of hers is Daisy Jones and the Six.
Mine too.
I think my least favorite is still the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
Okay.
That one jumped around a lot in time periods, and I really struggle with that sometimes. I feel like she did a really good job in this book. Like it didn't break up the story that much, and there wasn't a time period which that I preferred more than the other. But with that one, it was like hopped around a lot, and I was like, okay, I can't stay with this. I honestly forget Malibu Risings completely. All I remember is the father and the siblings.
Yeah, no, that's why I say there was no plot in Malibu Rising. Absolutely no plot. Like the house burned down, but it wasn't even that bad. I don't think anyone was injured. So like that was what it was all leading to. There was no plot. It was just about the siblings. I did like it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I liked it. I like that one too. Again, I couldn't tell you anything that happened. I actually couldn't tell you what happened in Daisy Jones and Six. I just remember liking it and reading it really fast.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually in the store yesterday or maybe Friday, and someone asked me what I thought about Colleen Hoover, and I was like, I just don't like her. I'm like, her one book that I read, the love interest set her on fire, and they fell in love anyway. Like I just can't get behind that. And they're like, what? And I was like, I mean, I just don't like her. Just don't ask any questions.
What's crazy is that is one of her most popular books, and I don't understand. I can't fathom it. It makes no sense.
I really just like that turned me off to her so hard because I read Ugly Love and I devoured it in like 2 days. Like I couldn't put it down. Like it was really good. It was really sad, but it was really good. And I was like kind of excited about November 9th, and I can't get behind it, and I can't read another book of hers.
Yeah, I have since read another book by her. I went ahead and read It Ends With Us, and I liked it. Me and Lily read it kind of together, and I liked it, but I heard she made the next one, and I've heard it's awful. So I'm like, all right, I'm not reading the next one.
I did like that book too. I read it on vacation, and it's like not a vacation book.
Yeah, no, it's like a cry on every page book.
I remember like having a margarita in my hand, like reading the last like couple chapters, and I was like, I don't know if I should like cry right now or like dance. Like I don't know what reaction I should have right now because I'm just not okay. But I always relate the two of them together. I just feel like they're both so big. Like they're just common. I don't want to say mainstream authors because like the people who don't read a lot read Taylor Jenkin Reid and Colleen Hoover. Like those are the two I feel like they always go to. Um, I feel like Colleen Hoover makes sense because her books are very easy to read. They're very like emotional and they're very like there's always love in them. Whereas I feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid's is hard because it's never a nice love story. Like there's love in them, but it's always imperfect. It's always failing. It's always awful. Like which is nice, but also I don't know how she's so big. But I mean
I
she's
don't know.
good, but I'm confused why non-readers love her so much.
I don't know. I did think this had the biggest love story, though. Well, I mean, aside from Daisy Jones and the Six, but that was kind of a failed love story. I thought this was the most successful love story. Her and Bo. I thought it was cute the way like they both had their issues but supported each other. And then the only thing I didn't like was I don't remember him from the before.
I don't either. It probably was a quick mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like whenever she had her first interaction with the boy and he kind of was like she's like, oh, like why don't we date? And he's just kind of like, no, let's just continue playing around. I feel like that set the bar for her so like for the rest of the book. Like I feel like she always had that mentality, like, oh, guys don't want to date me, they just want to sleep with me.
Uh-huh.
And it's so sad that like that could happen. Like that moment, that one moment in time set her on this cycle and she like didn't have a mother to like kind of guide her, and like her dad just kind of was like, we're not going to talk about boys ever, like we're going to avoid this topic. And that one moment set her entire life in motion, and like she never really accepted a boy until Bo, and Bo just like didn't let her say no. Like Bo just like stuck
Yeah.
around until, but it's sad because it took her to be like what, 38 for that to happen.
But I feel like she became that guy. The guy who told her, like, oh, this is fine as it is. We don't need to put labels on it. Like, you're going to go away in a few months, whatever. She did that exact same thing to Bo when they were like in bed together. And she's like, I don't need a bedside table. Like, I'm not going to be that girl. And I was like, be that girl. You and Bo have been together now for like 6 months. Get him a bedside table.
But I feel like she did that as a coping mechanism. And I don't think she talked about how like, I feel like that has to hurt as like what she's like 13 or like 15, like as a 15-year-old girl that has to hurt. And I feel like from then on she did it as a coping mechanism, being like, oh, I'm not letting anybody get close to me. And I feel like that also goes back to her mother leaving. Like she pretty much didn't let anybody else get close to her besides her father since her mother died,
Yeah.
except Bo. So and her agent, but it took her like 10 years working with her agent to be like, I love you.
I feel like her agent was shocked when she expressed emotion, and the agent was like, "Oh, you like me? Yeah, I mean, never would have guessed, but okay."
Maybe that's why her books are just so popular. They're just relatable. Like I can just relate to like you get your heart broken once and you're just like never let anybody close to you again for a while.
Yeah.
Learning
Yeah.
how to be vulnerable again.
What did you think of her competitor Chan?
I didn't love her.
I loved Nikki Chan.
I I didn't I guess I don't know. I just felt like she felt so sorry for herself all the time.
Nikki.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I liked her when we first met her. Not like first met her first chapter, but their first interactions together. I liked her. Then when they were in the bar together and Nikki threw some kind of like jab at her. I don't remember what it was, but it was some kind of jab and I was like, "Ooh, maybe I don't like Nikki." But then when Nikki sent her the flowers after Carrie Soto took her record back or tied the record, and Nikki sent her the flowers and was like, "Yellow is a declaration of war." I was like, "Ooh, I love Nikki Chan."
I do like her bringing in Greek mythology, and that goes back to Nikki, how Nikki was like, I forget now who took down Achilles, but I've read two Achilles retelling. I should know this, but um, I did like that. I like the Greek mythology throughout, and how Achilles had one weakness,
Mm.
and it was kind of his ego, her ego. But I'm glad she came back. I do wish she would have won in the last one, and then just retired on that, like won the U.S. Open, and that was it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how it was going to end. I had a feeling she wasn't going to win on the last one because it's Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I felt like it would be too happy if she won on the last one. But in the last match, I was rooting for Carrie. I was like wanting her to pull it out because she was finally just having fun and playing the way her dad always wanted her to. And she kind of like wasn't upset about losing. It was kind of like, either I'm going to win this or I'm going to lose to the best player in tennis. And I'm fine with either one. And so I was like, all right, this is a great one now for her to win. And then she lost. And I was like, all right, whatever. Taylor Jenkins Reid. I kind of knew you were going to do that, but fine.
She can never have a happy ending,
No, no,
ever.
never. But I mean, I get the whole like point of the story was kind of she kind of had to lose in the last one to achieve the point of the story, which was that it was never about winning. It was about Carrie healing and overcoming her ego, basically.
I do wish I knew tennis reading this book, 'cause, like all these matches that she talks about it as if we should just know
Yeah.
what these like. I know the U.S. Open because I'm in New York and like it happens here, but like, what's the one that she always wins on the grass?
Wimberley?
Wembley?
Wembley?
Wembley? I don't know. Like I don't even know any of these tournaments, so I
Mm-mm.
do wish I guess I had some like tennis background. I feel like anybody who likes tennis would like this book 'cause it talks a lot about tennis.
Mm-hmm.
Um, no, I mean I gave this book a 4 out of 5. It's definitely not like a book that I will read again, or I don't even know if I'd really recommend this to people. Um, because it's just like
Yeah.
it's not an easy read.
Yeah. I'd recommend Daisy Jones before I recommend this one.
Yeah, and an intro to Taylor's writing first, and then this one. I probably do Malibu Rising first, and then this one. I still like
Mm-hmm.
Malibu Rising. She has stayed on theme with her times. I think Daisy Jones in the Six was in the 60s. I think the Evelyn Hugo was in the 70s. This one was in the 80s, I think.
80s or 90s. I think it was 90s because she played a 1995 tournament.
And this was in the 90s, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But this was Malibu Rising was in the 80s.
Oh,
So
gotcha. Yeah.
so she stayed in this like
Mm-hmm.
time thing. So I guess it's her next book in the 2000s. I would love if she did
Ooh.
like a Britney Spears kind of thing
Yeah.
because Daisy Jones 6 is kind of like what's the band now? It's kind of based off of like a band that was popular then, like loosely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'd love her to do a loosely Britney Spears.
Britney Spears is relevant.
Yeah, that would be awesome. But
Uh-huh.
no, I will be next time she's a book, I will be pre-ordering it as soon as possible. I do like the cover. I just feel like it's a little different than her other covers, but I do like the cover a lot.
I like the cover. I thought based on the cover, I was gonna really root for Carrie Soto because just like, I don't know, there's something about the way the cover makes me feel. I thought Carrie was gonna be this really nice person. And then like it opens up and I was like, I don't know about this Carrie Soto. She doesn't fit what I felt from the cover.
Also, in the book, she talks about like not being thin and like kind of like being bigger
Mm-hmm.
and not in too much detail. Like we don't really know what size she is, but this cover looks like a thin girl. Like look at that jaw structure.
Gorgeous model. Yeah. Maybe it was just Carrie Soto not seeing her own worth.
Yeah, I think it goes down to the fact that like yeah, she even though her dad and her were so close, she still had daddy issues.
Oh, she had daddy issues, which is funny because like it's so different from I feel like Nina because Nina was beautiful and knew she was beautiful. She didn't let it get to her head though, and she definitely had daddy issues. I mean, her daddy was like Mick Jagger or something. So like Nina definitely had daddy issues, and so that's why I love that Carrie Soto is the one who stole the husband or like he cheated with Carrie Soto, and their reactions to that, like if it had been in the reverse, Carrie Soto would have killed Nina, you know? But
Yeah.
because it was like Nina was just like, it's not Carrie's fault. It's my stupid husband's fault. And like, I love how she brought it in. She made it like a little world. Oh, and Daisy Jones was mentioned in this book.
Yeah, she's reading a book. I didn't know if she's reading like Taylor's book about Daisy Jones or a book about Daisy Jones and the Six, but she brought that in there. Yeah, she has made her own little like Taylor Jenkin Reid universe. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for this more verse.
No, I actually did give this 4 stars on Goodreads, which I was, if you read my review, it does not sound like I'm giving it 4 stars, but there's just something about her writing.
She is a bear like her. I feel like she writes her books that are meant to be controversial. Like you can
Mm-hmm.
read this book and have two different opinions. Like thankfully we're on the same page and there's no fighting today, but like we could have walked in this and I've been like, Carrie Soto is the bomb diggity. I love her to death. Like she's such a badass, and you'd be like, she sucks. Like
Yeah.
thankfully we agree. Um, honestly, I don't remember. I really don't remember Mount Rising, but you didn't finish it, so you didn't have a strong opinion either. But
Thanks for listening. This is Kayla, and make sure you follow us on Instagram at Booktalks Podcast and to hit subscribe. Have a good night.